Hi everyone, I'm Randy Arrington and welcome to the 74th episode of Page Valley Livin'. We're here at the Luray home of Jim and Judy McNeely, a very special Luray home, one of the oldest in the town's history, the Ruffner House. And just this past weekend, they had about 100 cousins come in for a big family reunion to celebrate one of the families that started the town of Luray. We're going to talk about this 200-year-old home, how it was built in 1825, a little bit of family history out at a graveyard here on the property, and a little bit about what's been done to the home and what they need to do to maintain this legacy and treasure right here in the town of Luray. A lot of history here today on the 74th episode of Page Valley Livin'. We'll be back with the McNeelys and the Ruffner House right after a word from our sponsor. Hawksbill Assisted Living in Luray is now accepting new admissions. Hawksbill Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, offers quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, and veterans aid and attendance. Come visit Hawksbill Assisted Living, located near the beautiful Hawksbill Greenway in Luray. Call for a tour today or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com. Hi everyone, welcome back. We're here now in the Ruffner family cemetery that has been preserved. Before we go into the house that we're going to talk about in just a minute, we're here with Jim McNeely, owner of the Ruffner House and the property here, the 21 acres. But before we talk, as I said, about the 5,000 square foot home that is celebrating its 200th anniversary and had a big Ruffner reunion here this past weekend, we want to start right here. And Mr. McNeely, I believe while the house is 200 years old, this graveyard, which you believe may cover a little bit more than these walls on this knoll here on the 21 acres that you purchased, goes back 250 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, the cemetery is 250 years old. Peter and Mary Ruffner, when they came to Luray on a flat-bottom boat, settled here in 1739. The first casualty and the first person buried in this cemetery was one of their 8 children, a son by the name of Tobias, who was killed on the property when a tree fell on him that he was cutting down. So he was buried here in 1766.
Now, as you just said, Peter Ruffner Sr., who brought his family here in 1739. He's buried here, as is his wife and his son, Peter Ruffner Jr. And then Isaac, is Isaac also here?
We think Isaac is here. We're not real certain about Isaac, but Tobias certainly is one that's here.
Now, the reason I mention Isaac, because I know the importance of Isaac, right. I want you to tell the folks about the importance of Isaac.
Well, Isaac in 1812 donated the lots, the 16 lots, to the town of Luray for the town of Luray to exist.
Right.
And its charter was 1812. Those lots were up Main Street from Broad up Main Street to Court Street, and 16 lots, 8 lots on each side of the Main Street.
Now, originally, when the original estate, now I know back in 1999, when the property was going up for auction, and you saw it up for auction, there was 50 some acres up for auction. You bought 21, but what was the original estate, which expanded, as people will know now? We're almost like close to Bulldog Field,
right?
But it going back towards Main Street, it covered most of downtown, right?
Well, at one time, when they came, they were given 1,300 acres by Mary Steinman's father, land grant from Lord Fairfax.
Okay.
In a matter of years, they grew that to 2,600 acres, so that at one time, the Ruffners owned all the property from Stony Man out to the Shenandoah River on both sides of the river. And there's still about 800 acres on the Shenandoah River that's still in the Ruffner family. It's owned by about 2 or 3 of the Ruffners that remained in Luray. But here we had 50 acres being auctioned off, and Judy and I preempted the bid for the offer for the 21 acres on which the property and the cemetery.
Now, this is a small area here that's kind of has a stone wall around it, but you believe in talking to some of your other ancestors or some of your other family that this whole knoll, this whole hillside that sits up above a small pond here on the property, that there may be some of your ancestors buried all around in the area, and that some of the headstones and markings may have been lost because due to big floods. And also due to an interesting reason, because some of them were metal. What did that?
Actually, many of them are metal. You'll see a couple of them here, and there's one on the outside over here, and one in the pasture behind me.
Why would the metal headstones go missing?
Well, they buried them, many of them, so we don't know what's underground here, but they were buried back during the Civil War to prevent the enemy from using them and melting them down and making cannonballs out of them.
Okay.
That's the folklore that goes with the story about the metal markers.
Okay.
Just as soon as we finished this stone wall, we found a marker just outside here on this corner, and you'll see the one over here. But a cousin of ours who did a lot of history around Page County says this entire knoll may have hundreds of graves in it, because the family was big, and of course it's been here for 250 years. So, and at that time, I think even slaves were buried along with the family if you had slaves on the property. So
now this stone wall was added maybe about 25 years ago.
What happened? This little area here had a cast iron fence around it. You'll see the cast iron gate that we were able to save. We saved a piece of it to make this gate. We'll see the finials that are on the corners, but a tree fell on it. So Judy and I decided that when the Ruffner Family Association met here in 1997 to erect this monument to Peter Ruffner and Mary Steinman Ruffner, that we would build a wall around it. So it's built out of limestone. It was built by a local stonemason here in Luray.
Okay.
And it took him about 9 months to do it, with about 20 tons of limestone. And just as soon as we finished it, we found these two markers outside of the cemetery.
Wow.
So people have asked, are you going to dig any further? And it's like, no, I don't plan to do. We'll let the next generation of Ruffners figure out who's buried outside the cemetery.
Well, here's our starting point here at the Ruffner Family Cemetery. We're going to go inside the house just a moment and see some of the beautiful rooms inside this 200-year-old home. Later on, we'll talk also about the reunion that was held this weekend, when at least 100 or more Ruffner family ancestors were gathered right here in Luray to pay homage to this family that helped start the town of Luray. We hope you enjoy episode 74 of Page Valley Living, as we are filming here today on Tuesday, June 24th, and it will be airing on Wednesday, June 25th. Back in just a moment, and we're going to go inside of the Ruffner home. Whew, folks, I tell you, it is scorching out there today at the graveyard. 95 degrees here still in the evening in Luray as we are filming this segment here on Tuesday, June the 24th. We are now inside the much cooler parlor of the Ruffner House here, and talking with Jim McNeely again about this house that is celebrating now its 200th anniversary, originally being built in 1825. Now, Jim, you had told me, and I have read about how you were living in Ohio just before you retired. You had come to your first McNeely reunion in 1997, and in 1999 you purchased this house, and it was 2005 before you actually moved from Ohio to come here to Luray, back to your historical or ancestral roots. And it was 6 years of renovations that you did to this house. Tell me a little bit about what you did during that period.
Well, it was we came here with a 5-year plan to renovate the house completely, and we're currently in year 25 of it. I mean, we just there is a never-ending job that we have.
Yes.
When we bought the house originally, we bought it preemptive off the auction block. It was going to be auctioned.
Okay.
And so we offered an amount of money for the house, and they accepted our offer. And it took them about 3 or 4 months for us to close because of a variety of legal things that we had to go through. When we bought the house, had not had the love that we thought a Ruffner House should have, that we wanted anyway. So we came in and spent 5 years while we were still working in Columbus. We'd come over on a weekend, we would scrape a wall, paint a wall, and go back to Columbus.
Oh, wow.
Because it was being run as a B&B at the time.
Okay.
And so we had guests, and we didn't want to interrupt the guest flow into the house.
Sure, sure.
So this portion of the house that we're in now is the original Ruffner side of the house.
Right.
It was a 2-story house over a full basement. And it was built in 1825 by Isaac Ruffner, Peter Ruffner Jr.'s grandson.
Right, right. And as we talked about at the graveyard, Peter Ruffner Sr., was the original patriarch that moved his family here in 1739. And then Isaac, his grandson, was the one that then donated land for the town of Luray. And according to what I read, then in 1851, there was an owner by the name of William Chapman, who added then the west side of the house. And that, does that kind of mirror the east side?
It's exactly like the east side. You could go outside and you can see where the two houses basically were joined. This wall right here is 18 inches thick, and it used to be the back wall of the original Ruffner house.
Okay.
And so they added a like portion to that side. The DeFords were the tannery owners at the time, and they built, or the Chapmans were built this portion of the house, and then the DeFords came in and embellished it and made it, refurbished everything, and made it kind of from a simple farmhouse into what we think is a very nice home. And then of course all of the renovations that my wife Judy and I did just added the creme to the top of it, and we've just been enjoying living here ever since.
And the DeFords, of course, that the DeFord Tannery was the precursor of the Virginia Oak Tannery, which sits just within sight up the hill here, the former location of it.
Well, the original property that was going to be auctioned was 51 acres.
Okay.
Judy and I bought 21 acres of it.
Okay.
And so the house here, the Ruffner house, the house next door, which the DeFords built back when they were running the tannery, the property is 21 acres. It has 13 outbuildings. It has a swimming 100-year-old swimming pool.
I was going to ask you about that.
And we've renovated all of that. So
that was Luray's first swimming pool, wasn't it? Another piece of history.
And the stories that people used to tell about everybody came to this swimming pool to go swimming.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. So, but before we get to that, now you say we got the main house here, a second house that the DeFords built. There's a beautiful waterfall that we're going to visit in the latter part of the last segment here that you all kind of added or cleaned up and added. And a lot of landscaping, the pool. Is there anything else contained within the 21 acres? Any other buildings or anything?
Yeah, we have 13 outbuildings.
Wow.
We had 2 barns down here. Both of them have had what I call new skin put all the way around them.
Okay.
All of the buildings on the inside have been fortified to today's standards. So there's not a building on the grounds that we haven't touched and done something to, including the house next door.
Okay.
We put new roofs on everything when we first arrived. We put new cupolas on the barns when we first arrived. We wanted everybody to know that the Ruffners were back in town, or at least alive and doing well back in town.
Now, last question for this segment here before we go over to the dining room, which has some interesting history. Now, you had said in a previous interview that there used to be folks who would just wander up to the house or drive up to the house and want a tour or want to see inside, and they had some of their own memories to share, I think.
Right. Yeah, we had almost a parade of cars once we bought it. coming in, trying to check it out to see what we were doing. And of course, we were still a B&B at the time, and we were trying to maintain the privacy of the people staying in the B&B. We had Ruffner cousins visit, people just dropping in, telling us stories about when they used to stay here or when they would come swimming here.
Yeah.
One gentleman told me about climbing on top of the pool house and diving off into the swimming pool. And it is a big swimming pool.
Yeah.
But we've redone even the swimming pool and the bathhouse to make it make bathrooms out of them. So we've done numerous things, and we stopped. We started living here in 2009 as this is our home. We quit. We stopped being a B&B, and since that time we've kind of restricted the flow of people coming through with gates up front. But there's still a lot of people who come by and want to tell stories, and many of them Ruffners from right here in town, just welcoming us back into the community.
Well, I think you've done a wonderful job with the home. It's a magnificent place to live, so much history here. When we come back after a word from our sponsor, we're going to go into the dining room and talk about a story related to this home that goes back to the Civil War. All of that and more when we come back in just a moment. Whispering Pines Assisted Living is now accepting new admissions. Quality care at affordable rates, professionally trained staff, memory support, and short-term respite stays are all offered by Whispering Pines Assisted Living, powered by Valley Care Management, where home and heart meet. Call for a tour today on Leakesville Road in Luray or learn more at valleycaremanagement.com. And welcome back, everyone, to the 74th episode of Page Valley Livin', right here in the Ruffner House, one of the oldest homes in the town of Luray. And we moved from the parlor with Jim McNeely here over to the dining room. And this room used to have a dumbwaiter. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was right here, just behind me. The first indoor kitchen in the house was down in this corner in the basement.
Okay.
It had a fireplace with a spit in it, still there today.
Oh, wow.
And
the spit is still there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The spit is still there. And so they used to bring the food up to the main dining room through a dumbwaiter. That was when the DeFords lived here. They were a fairly well-to-do family from Baltimore, Maryland, that ran the tannery.
That ran the tannery originally. And you have an interesting story that ties this room to the Civil War. What's that story about?
Well, about 10 years ago, we had the pleasure of having the 90th birthday party for Howard Chapman of the Chapman family that used to live here during the Civil War.
Okay.
And he was telling us a story that his grandfather told him about the soldiers that camped and ate out in this pasture out here, this 15 or 20 acres in front of the house.
Okay.
And that they used to have to feed them through through the downstairs kitchen here, through the window. And if it were the Union soldiers, they would stand in line, and everybody else would have to wait until they ate, and then the family could eat. But that was probably one of the reasons he said that the house may not have been burned when Sherman came through.
No kidding.
That because of the way that they were treated at this property.
So much history here, and again, a magnificent house. Is really you all have done an amazing job with this home and the history and your family history. But I know that growing up, you didn't know a lot about your family history, like we talked about out at the graveyard earlier. And when you grew up, I read somewhere that you grew up in a 2-room house. You shared a room with 2 other siblings, your brother and sister, and you used to dream about living in a brick house. Did you ever think you'd live in a brick house like this?
We not only dreamed it, we talked about it. We used to talk about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And my brother was always talking about he wanted to be able to retire when he was 55.
Okay.
My sister wanted to get married. And all I wanted in my life was to own a brick house. I thought everybody in Malden, West Virginia, where we grew up,
right,
who lived in a brick house was successful. And so I always strive to live in a brick house. And we lived in a lot of brick houses along the way in our career, but we call this the ultimate brick house. How many people get to live in a brick house of your 8th generation grandparents? Not very many, I don't think.
Not very many at all. And as we've said, you all have done a lot of renovations to this home. You've lived in it as your residence since 2009 when it stopped being a B&B. And now we're going to go for our final segment. We're going to step outdoors again, back out in that heat, but next to a little oasis that you and your wife created right here at the Ruffner House. We're going to be back with you in just a moment out at the waterfall. And here we are outside of the Ruffner House with Jim and Judy McNeely, and sitting in front of this beautiful fountain, which I hear used to be covered with vines and was grown over, and just there was nothing here except for maybe a little fish pond that you found, and this was your brainchild to create this. Is that accurate?
That's very accurate, yes.
How many hours do you think you put into that?
A lot, because we had to clear all these rocks. To find the rocks, we had to clear all this growth off of it.
Well, I know what I think, but after all those hours and all that work, you think it was worth it?
Absolutely.
I do as well. Mr. McNeely, when was the first reunion that you attended here of the Ruffner family?
Well, the first actual reunion was in 1997, but I didn't attend because the people who organized it were from Colorado, and I'd asked a couple of ladies, friends of my mother's, if I should attend. Did we know anybody in Colorado? She said, no, nobody from Colorado is a Ruffner. They're all from Luray, Virginia. So that would not be your family. So the first one I actually attended was in 1999. And from that reunion, we found out that the property was going to be for sale. And that is when we actually got interested, because I didn't know anything about my family for about 60 years until the Ruffner Family Association was created. And through all the history of what they found, and found out that this house was going to come onto the marketplace, I came over, flew over that day and looked at it, and it was at nighttime. I didn't see anything but this one house. I mean, I didn't even know there was a swimming pool. I didn't know there were barns. I just sat on this porch out here and made the deal on would they hold the property for me until the auction was called off and so forth. So, but I came to the reunion, and since that time, the Ruffner Reunion has now been around for 25 years as an organization, and it's grown tremendously. I grew up with 3 girl cousins, and now I have over 400 cousins all over the nation. We had 55 people from out of state that came here from out of state to this reunion this year, and about 43 people from the state of Virginia. So the out-of-staters outnumbered the locals that came to the reunion. We had about 100 people. So it's grown tremendously. We've written books on all 6 of the remaining children, or of the 8 original children. We have written 6 books on each of the families, done extensive research on all the families. We've created scholarships for students. We've really become quite a great organization, and this year was one of our finest reunions ever. It lasted almost 4 days.
Well, we saw some of the decorations that you had inside of the house there. You got some balloons still up and all. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw some cake wrapped up in there. How in the world do you still have cake left?
I don't know. They didn't eat enough, I guess.
Y'all had about 100 people, is that right?
That's
Right.
true. Yeah.
And I bet it took a lot of time preparing to get ready for those
Yes,
folks.
it did. They were worth it.
Did a few of them stay here at the house?
No.
No, okay. Well, let me ask you this. Now, did y'all do things like who traveled the farthest or who's the oldest? Do you remember some of those names?
I do. First of all, the person who traveled the farthest was from Seattle, Washington.
Oh, wow.
Her name was Marilyn Coutade. Her mother, Betty Gang, was the historian for the Ruffner Family Association for many years. did much of the research on the Ruffner family. As a matter of fact, some of her ashes were scattered on the cemetery at
Oh, wow.
this reunion. So the oldest of the Ruffners is Nancy Lee Schiffman
Yes.
here in Luray.
Miss Nancy Lee. Yeah.
92 years old.
Yeah.
She's now the matriarch of the family.
Okay.
But we had people from Sonoma, California.
Wow.
We had people from Jacksonville, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, we had, as a matter of fact, that's why the reunion lasts more than one day, is so that people from out of state could get here. And they represent all of the families, all 8 of the original family members.
Well, I want to ask you this. I want to close out with this question here, and I want both of you to give a little answer for this one. But, you know, I read an article from about 14 years ago in the Page News and Courier that when you came here, of course, you wanted to protect your family's legacy. You wanted to protect the history of this house, which is listed on the Virginia Landmarks Register, the National Register of Historic Places, and the Virginia Civil War Trails as well. I can understand protecting the house and protecting your family legacy, but you commented in that story that it has become home. What for you, both of you, made this come from a really great historic house to becoming a home?
There's such a feeling on this property. I stayed by myself when Jim was traveling here for a couple of years, and there's just such a feeling of warmth. There's something about it that you feel like you belong here. I was never afraid. I never had any worries. I feel protected here. I feel like the ancestors in the cemetery take care of us. I really do. Or the ghost, or whatever you want to call them.
How about you, Mr. McNeely?
It was the people, easily the people. To go from having 3 girl cousins, that's all I knew when I was growing up, until the age of 60, and to have all these cousins. And Frank and Clara Brown of the Brown restaurant fame, you know, the Brown's restaurant, their family, which is Bob Brown here in town. But they would come by about once or twice a week, bringing us fruit, bringing us cake. Nancy Lee Schiffman, everybody came by, made us feel so much at home. And then when you think about it and you say, how many people ever get a chance to live in their great-grandfather 8 times removed home, you know? And so all of this played into the fact that this is home, and our children aren't interested in maintaining and moving to the property. We have 2 of them, as much as they love it. So we've sort of said we're going to try to make sure if anything ever happens to the property, it goes to stays in the Ruffner family for the 160 years it was out of the Ruffner family. So we do have people that have shown some interest in down the road of Ruffners of wanting to live on the property after we get to the point where we can't live on it any longer.
Well, I, for one, as a resident of Luray, am very glad that you found your Ruffner ties and that you decided to come back here. I think the town of Luray is better for both of you being here. And this is a beautiful home. Thank you so much for preserving it for the next generations and preserving some of the history of the town of Luray. Judy and Jim McNeely, thank you so much for letting us tour your home today, spending some time with us on this hot summer afternoon here as the sun is going to fade down over the Massanutten here in just a little bit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you out there for watching episode 74 of Page Valley Livin', right here from the Ruffner House in Luray. For Jim and Judy McNeely, I'm Randy Arrington saying until next week, make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, we want to thank Eleanor Arrington for her work behind the camera and in the editing room this week. And as we always remind you, make sure you pay a trip down to the Page County Animal Shelter and help one of our furry friends find a forever home. Until next week, I'm Randy Arrington saying enjoy that Page Valley living.